Xbox doubles down on the Series S. Is this the future of Xbox controllers? We'll talk the latest news coming out of Gamescom, and is Xbox fighting an uphill battle against PlayStation? Let's discuss. What's up, guys, and welcome to another edition of Xbox Ready, the YouTube channel that is dedicated to all things Xbox. I'm hitting you with another news video. You know how I do these things. I gather up stories from around the video game industry that pertain to Xbox in some way and share them with you to make sure that you are Xbox ready. But as the channel has grown, we've been lucky enough to experiment with all sorts of different content. Just last week, we took a trip to the California Science Center and did a whole thing about Starfield and things you can do to get ready for the game's launch. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, if you're a fan of Xbox, if you like my content, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. I would also appreciate a follow on Instagram. And if you're looking for any new accessories, controllers, or anything related to Xbox, I have links for that stuff all underneath this video if you want to buy through those. It goes a long way in helping out the channel, and I would really appreciate it. I'm just so grateful, guys. So way back in 2019, Hyperkin, who makes third-party controllers, teased this controller that they were working on that was going to use Hall effect sensors in their thumbsticks. Now, what is that? We've explained it a couple of times on the channel. I've personally never used one of these controllers, but with this technology, Hall effect sensors, this is supposed to eliminate stick drift entirely. Now, I don't know the exact science behind it, but traditionally thumbsticks, they have some sort of friction when you're using them. They're rubbing up against whatever. And with these Hall effect sensors, with this tech, from my understanding, they use magnets and they're just kind of sensing where you're pointing the stick, thus eliminating wear on the sticks and controller, and thus eliminating stick drift. The Verge explains it a lot better than I can. Hall effect sensors use magnets to detect movement, meaning there's no internal friction or impact between surfaces when you're turning an analog stick or pressing a trigger. Potentiometer-based modules, like the ones used in all first-party gamepads from Nintendo Joy-Cons to Sony's DualSense Edge and Microsoft's Xbox Elite Series 2, can all fall victim to drift over time. Yeah, that's pretty much what I said. But now Hyperkin is officially unveiling this controller. It's called the Competitor, and it's going to be releasing sometime in Q1 of 2024. It's priced at $49.99, it's wired, and it has more of a PlayStation layout where the thumbsticks are on the same plane. They're not asymmetrical. This new controller is following an interesting trend wherein we're starting to see this technology, Hall effect sensors, in more third-party controllers. Not too long ago, we talked about GameSir G7 SE controller, which has the same tech, and I'm wondering, is this the future of Xbox controllers? We're starting to see more and more third-party companies include this tech in their controllers at pretty reasonable prices. It's not like it's breaking the bank. So I'm starting to think, okay, when are console makers, when are platform holders gonna catch on and add this tech? On the PlayStation side, we've seen Sony kind of push it when it comes to the technology that they're packing into their DualSense, and we've seen them experiment with the DualSense Edge with that modular tech, wherein if you get stick drift, you can kind of remove those sticks and replace them with new ones. I think it'd be really interesting and great for Xbox if they adapted something similar, whether it was taking Hall effect sensors and making them standard in Xbox controllers, or doing something modular like the DualSense Edge. The fact of the matter is that stick drift is becoming more and more of a problem, and it's becoming increasingly obvious that companies have to respond. These people, your customers, are dropping a lot of money on your controllers, whether it's the Elite Series 2, whether it's all these like custom cool looking colors that Xbox keeps coming out with. And with that kind of investment, it would be nice if Xbox provided a way for those controllers to last way longer. Maybe this is all wishful thinking. I've never made a controller. I don't know what all goes into making a controller, but I'm looking at these third-party companies, including this tech in their controllers, and I'm thinking, okay, why can't Xbox do that? At the very least, they can include that tech in the Elite Series 3. If you haven't been keeping up, Gamescom is in full swing over in Germany. It's a giant blowout game show, and Xbox has quite the presence there. When I was watching the stream yesterday, the Xbox booth looked crazy. I think Phil Spencer said it was like an insane amount of square footage, like 50,000 square feet or something ridiculous like that. We talked last video about some of the announcements that Xbox made on opening night of Gamescom, including a shadow drop of Age of Empires 4 on Xbox consoles. And going into day one, we got some really awesome looks at Towerborn, at the things that that they did to build Age of Empires from the ground up to make sure you can play it on console, some really cool interviews, some really cool demonstrations, some really cool footage. And after that day one stream was done, we learned some other very interesting things. Number one, Phil Spencer doubled down on the Series S. Now, there's been a lot of controversy and discussion about the Series S over the past couple of weeks because the Xbox version of Baldur's Gate 3, which is a super awesome game, is delayed, and we don't know when it's going to come to Xbox because the Series S cannot run local co-op for Baldur's Gate 3. I'm sure all the other parts of the game run just fine. Larian Studios just could not figure out how to get split screen running on the Series S. Phil Spencer came out and doubled down on the Series S. He was saying things like, I don't see a world where we drop the Series S, and I'm like, whoa, 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 I don't think anyone was asking you to drop the Series S entirely, just drop like the parity clause that prevents certain games from coming to your platform. He ends the video with saying like, I think we're gonna get to a point where we can get Baldur's Gate 3 onto the Xbox platform, but then there was just an update to the story not too long ago. Larian Studios came out and said, yeah, we talked to Phil Spencer yesterday, and we're bringing Baldur's Gate 3 to Xbox in 2023. How are they doing that? The CEO of Larian Studios tweeted out, super happy to confirm that after meeting with Phil yesterday, we found a solution that allows us to bring Baldur's Gate 3 to Xbox players this year still, something we've been working towards for quite some time. All improvements will be there with the split screen co-op on Series X. Series S will not feature split screen co-op, but will also include cross-save progression between Steam and Xbox Series. Yes, is it a bummer that Series S owners won't be able to play this game split screen? Sure. The split screen in this game is dope. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna tell you like, oh, you're not missing out on anything. It's great. But as I've said in previous videos, I feel like that's a pretty fair compromise. You got a cheap console that is able to run pretty much all modern games, but you're gonna have to make some compromises on like, okay, my games aren't gonna look the best compared to if I had a Series X. I'm not gonna have certain features. I will be interested to see if this trend continues, like, oh, Xbox saying, yeah, you can drop certain features as long as you bring your game to our platform. But that's for future Xbox to worry about. That's for future Ray to worry about. For now, this is a huge win for fans and for Xbox. In other really good news, we got a new trailer for Stalker 2, and it looks great. They're showing off actual gameplay. I feel like we haven't gotten that with Stalker 2 yet. Actual FPS gameplay. It was about 1.5 minutes long. Looks pretty dope. Looks pretty scary. A lot of dog killing in this game. I feel like in the trailer alone, it's like whoever was playing killed 2 dogs. I don't know how that's going to go over with people like my wife who just cannot stand violence against animals. But outside of that, it looked really cool. I'm really looking forward to this game. And we got a release window for this game. Unfortunately, it's not coming out in 2023 like a lot of people were hoping for or guessing or predicting, but it is supposed to come out sometime in Q1 of 2024. I'm personally fine with that because I got a lot of games to play between now and the end of this year. Starfield's coming out. Baldur's Gate 3 I still haven't finished. Armored Core 4 is on the way. Frickin' Spider-Man 2 is coming out. I still haven't even played frickin' Tears of the Kingdom. So me personally, I'm fine with waiting until 2024 to play Stalker 2. Speaking of games that are coming out between now and the end of this year, Warhammer Darktide is coming to Xbox consoles finally on October 4th. Now this game came out on PC, I feel like forever ago, and they were like, guys, we promise there is gonna be an Xbox version, there's gonna be a console version, it's coming soon, guys, don't even worry about it. But again, that was forever ago, and fans have been waiting, wondering, being like, when is you know what, you guys said it was coming soon, but it's not here yet. Well, now, after many months of waiting, it is finally making its way over to Xbox consoles. This has been on PC Game Pass for forever, and you'll be able to play it on console Game Pass as well. These games typically do pretty well on Game Pass. I know a lot of people enjoyed Warhammer Vermintide the last time it was on the service. So even though this game was received like, so, people were kind of whatever about it, I feel like it'll do pretty well on Game Pass once it comes over to console. So if you're watching this channel, if you like Xbox and you like Xbox content, chances are you know of the Iron Lords podcast. I've been keeping up with them for a while, and they're a great group of dudes. I got to meet them at this past Xbox showcase. I got to spend a lot of time talking to COG. They are exemplary members of the Xbox Xbox community. I feel like more Xbox owners should strive to be like the Iron Lords. But recently on their podcast, they had a very interesting guest, Peter Moore, who was an ex-executive at both EA and Xbox. It was a great episode with lots of interesting insights, but one in particular that I feel like not a lot of people are talking about. Over the course of this episode, Peter Moore was basically detailing the uphill, crazy battle that Xbox had back in the day, back in the OG console wars, because PlayStation was just such a dominant force in the market. You're writing really big checks to get content. You don't have an install base that you can point to. He alleged that once the Dreamcast was out of the picture and Sega was no longer a platform holder, Sony was just going crazy. They were just absolutely dominating, and alleged that they had these gaming studios in their pocket because of it. It's interesting because obviously they're referring to the past. The Dreamcast has not been around for a couple of decades now, but a lot of what Peter Moore is saying here can be applied to today. Sony leveraging their market position, their dominance to get favorable deals from different studios, work out contracts to keep games off of Xbox, and Xbox having to burn a bunch of money either on these third-party exclusivity deals or outright buying studios. And now I'm not gonna go on and be like, oh, PlayStation is bullying Xbox, because at the end of the day, Xbox is backed by Microsoft, a mega corporation, and it's really hard to feel bad for corporations as big as Microsoft. The reality of the situation is, yes, Xbox is fighting an uphill battle, still, after all these years, but they're fighting an uphill battle due to a combination of things. One, yes, because Sony is using their market dominance, their huge install base, to kind of throw their weight around, and basically success begets success. But also, Xbox is in the position that they're in because of decisions that they made. Sony did not make them at the start of the Xbox One generation be like, you know what, let's make it less about games and more about having like a entertainment system for the whole family. Let's bundle in the Kinect and, you know, not put too much priority on our flagship games like Halo and Gears. Xbox even had the opportunity to have Spider-Man as a first-party franchise, but they were like, no, we're gonna focus more on our internal projects, our first-party stuff, and we all know how that turned out. It feels like they didn't really focus on that. It feels like they could have had the time to work on Spider-Man, make some Spider-Man exclusive Xbox games, but hey, I don't know. It's all in what ifs at this point. So yes, it's a combination of Sony using their dominance and Xbox's poor decisions that have put them in the position that they're in today. And that's something that we just gotta accept. I'm hopeful that it's gonna turn around, starting with Starfield. The head of Xbox marketing has mentioned that Starfield, it's the starting gun to a relay race of really awesome first-party offerings from Xbox. So we'll see that if these upcoming string of Xbox Game Studios exclusives coming up is enough to kind of turn the tide back in Xbox's favor. Maybe they get back a little bit more of that market share. And if they don't, I don't know. Hopefully I still have a channel. Next up, let's talk a little bit about cloud gaming. I haven't done this in a really long time, and honestly, this is more of a catch-up story because I don't know how I missed this and didn't include it in my last video, but Xbox, in order to get around the CMA's kind of approval or win them over and finally get this Activision Blizzard acquisition over the finish line, they're apparently going to sell off some of their cloud streaming rights, specifically to Activision Blizzard titles, to Ubisoft. Xbox President Brad Smith said specifically, under the restructured transaction, Microsoft will not be in a position either to release Activision Blizzard games exclusively on its own cloud streaming service, Xbox Cloud Gaming, or to exclusively control the licensing terms of Activision Blizzard games for rival services. The agreement with Ubisoft has been structured so that Microsoft will still acquire the rights needed to honor fully its legal obligations under its commitments to the European Commission, as well as its existing contractual obligations to other cloud gaming streaming providers, including Nvidia, Boosteroid, Ubisoft, and Enware. I don't know if this is the ideal situation for Xbox. Obviously, if you're spending this much money on an acquisition, you want control over all aspects of the IP and its businesses and its subsidiaries. But I feel like that's a reasonable price to pay. Okay, yeah, we'll sell off some of the streaming rights or whatever to Ubisoft in order to get everything else, like King games, like Call of Duty, like World of Warcraft, and all that other stuff. It's definitely a win if you're Ubisoft. You're like, oh, hell yeah. Now we can use some of those Activision Blizzard games to boost our own service, Ubisoft Plus. Maybe we'll still be relevant even if all of our new Assassin's Creed games flop. The United Kingdom has insisted that this deal, this proposition has not been greenlit yet, but potentially if the UK agrees to this new restructured deal, then we will finally see the end of this Activision Blizzard acquisition. Again, I feel like it's not that big of a deal for Xbox, you know, what they're giving up versus what they're getting in return. And you can argue that this was their plan all along, like they were going to sell the streaming rights to multiple other companies, but now Ubisoft is going to be the one in charge of that, I guess. Anyways, guys, that's all the news I have for today. Thanks so much for joining me for another edition of Xbox Ready, and we'll see you in the next video.